Hello everyone, welcome to a new video for Forex price prediction based on Elliott wave analysis. We're gonna see the Euro, GBP and JPY prices and what it might of course be the scenarios and the possibilities plus the targets of course for the next weeks. Starting with the Euro USD, we're gonna see the all-time history here as an ABC zigzag toward the upside, finishing potential wave A or wave W. After this, we see, of course, a further correction downside. Of course, nothing is impulsive there. Everything is corrective in this wave. It is a W, X, and a Y, where we can see, of course, a double zigzag and, of course, another running flat for a wave X here, finishing, of course, a complex structure in a wave B or a wave, bigger wave X here. And that means, of course, you might be in a W, X, and a Y, or you might be in an A, B, and a C, a regular flat toward the upside. Still looking for the 1-to-1 Fib level 1.05 as a regular flat wave C, which it has to be, of course, impulsive as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. In case you are in a wave Y here, you have to expect, of course, some complex corrective structures, which it can be here, of course, a 3 waves up, 3 waves down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a simple regular flat to finish a wave Y. Potentially here can be another potential scenario, of course, as a zigzag for wave A, zigzag for B, C, D, and E, of course, where you might see, of course, a triangle here formation for a wave Y. After this, you might expect a further downside, of course, for the euro here. Another possibility is simply a bigger zigzag, and that means, of course, can be 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 impulse, a correction, and another impulse for a zigzag in a wave Y, which might, of course, give us a little bit more higher prices. Now, basically, for the euro, we are looking right now on this price action. We can see, of course, clearly an impulse wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 can be still unfolding toward the upside. However, our key level 1-to-1 Fib level, given, of course, since months here, has been hit and rejected somehow impulsively. After an impulse toward the upside, we finish a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start to see, of course, an A, B, and a C potential correction here. And it can be, of course, a several scenarios here, but basically the main one is an ABC expanding flat, because we saw, of course, the wave B getting a new high here and then starting the move towards the downside again, rejection. We see, of course, a potential wave C unfolding for a wave 2 or a wave B, potentially as ABC, but higher possibility can be a wave 2, meaning this might be, of course, a 1-2, which is the main 1-2 for your main impulse, and what you are looking at right now is a potential 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your wave 3 here, because of course a wave 3 has to be an impulse 5 waves upward, and that means a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. The wave 2 minimum target is a $1.12 here for the euro. If we move inside it on the lower time frame, we can see clearly that we are in 3 waves corrective, and that means nothing is impulsive downward, but simply a correction here, followed by 3 waves up, getting, of course, the high, and that means, of course, it's an expanding flat wave B here. And I'm going to show the previous analysis here for the lower time frame, and as you can see, we have hit perfectly our blue box here with the perfect Fib levels of a wave B. Now we saw, of course, confirmation for higher, starting by taking the high. We saw higher prices. This one we can remove it. We saw higher prices, and we saw, of course, this level hit and rejected, and that means, of course, we continue right now downward for a wave C. We can also mention that we have a potential impulse as a 1-2 here, and continuation, of course, for the trend downward. And after this, we can see, of course, on the 1 hour chart here, a potential impulse finished as well as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Now, can this be an A, B, and a C finishing kind of like a bigger W, X, and a Y? And that means, of course, you might be here in 3 waves downward. Yes, can be. And that means this is your W, your X, your wave Y might be 3 ways down, 3 ways up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towards the downside. However, if the price stays, of course, below this this level, I'm gonna put exactly here this one. And if we are looking here potentially at an impulse downward, meaning a 1-2 and then another 1-2, you would like to see, of course, the price is still, of course, ranging below this one. So if we get higher, it can be a confirmation for higher prices a little bit, and that means, of course, the formation of three ways up and then moving towards the downside. However, preferably here that we might be, of course, in a double 1-2 scenario and then 3-4-5-4-5, finishing directly this wave C because it is the time to finish it. And that because, of course, the timing taken from the wave 1 here. For a wave 2, you can see the perfect time would be exactly at the 0.618 for a wave 2. So preferably the scenario that we might see here can be, of course, the impulse downward in a 1-2, 1-2, and then 3-4-5-4-5, finishing directly, of course, this wave 2 perfectly in the middle of this timing required for a wave 2, ABC, three ways, and then continuation toward the upside. Therefore, highest possibility here, of course, is a double 1-2 on the lower time frame that we are looking here: 1-2, 1-2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and a 5. And this is the only way to reach anyway the target required, the minimum requirement, of course, for a wave 2. So I'm gonna mark this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 here, and of course another 1, 2 here, potentially unfolding 4 and a 5, as of course magenta here. Now, in case that we are in a bigger formation of an A, B, and a C can be also possible, but as you can see, this will not really resolve our scenario, which is the minimum requirement, 0.38, $1.12. Because, of course, in a regular flat, you might end up kind of like a wave C, simply taking the low here. And of course, it cannot be because we took the high anyway with the wave B, and that means, of course, it is an expanding flat here. Whether you are in a zigzag can be also possibility, of course, of an ending diagonal, but again, very low possibility because ending diagonal wave 1 zigzag 2, 3, 4, and a 5 might simply take the low without reaching, of course, the minimum requirement for wave 2. Therefore, highest possibility again is a double 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and a 5 to reach this area accurately, and then moving, of course, for higher prices again for wave 3. That was it for the euro. This is the highest possibility in an impulse downward. Let's watch what's going to happen in the next week. Now, if we move for the GPP, so let's see the GPP, what is doing as well. We're going to start as well on the all-time history for the GPP, where we are looking here at a potential, of course, a diagonal downward, where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Now, of course, it can be a diagonal, which of course requiring here a potential wave 2 or a wave B. 1-to-1 fib level is a very potential to be hit for higher prices. However, if this is not a diagonal and we are looking at something corrective as W, X, and a Y, can be, of course, since you have kind of like, yeah, it looks like an impulse, but it can be, of course, an ABC zigzag, X, and a wave Y in another zigzag, and then starting, of course, the rebound toward the upside. Now, it can be corrective three ways, or it can be also impulsive towards the upside. As you can see, you got an impulse before, but it was directly invalidated with the 2008 crisis here. And we start to see, of course, the GPP struggling further and further, of course, after the Brexit. Also in the 2016, we see, of course, a further struggling for the sterling here, until, of course, we found some bottom here exactly at the $1 almost for the GPP, at the lowest price ever in history, of course, for the sterling. Now, we start, of course, to see something moving toward the upside here, and of course on the lower time frame we can mention that this can be a wave 1 as an impulse. You got a wave 2 and you continue a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towards the upside here after, of course, an ABC. Now, if we move a little bit further inside it on the 4 hours chart to see, of course, much more clearer, we can see we have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 for wave 3, A, B, C for wave 4, no invalidation, meaning a clear 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. The wave 5 is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ending a diagonal here, finishing a potential wave 1. followed by a 3 waves downward, 3 waves upward, without taking the high. Of course, as this is different from the euro, and that means, of course, this might be a regular flat here and not an expanding flat. However, if we are here in a potential 1, 2, or a big wave 1 and then wave 2, you would like to see, of course, a bigger impulse downward, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that it might reach, of course, the minimum requirement 0.38. However, there is another possibility here for the GPP that it might be unfolding as well, which is, of course, a double 1, 2 rather than having a big impulse. And that means, of course, you can call this kind of like a 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and a 5 finished over there as a wave 1. You got a deep wave 2. And then another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as leading diagonal, another wave 2, hitting perfectly the 1 to 1 fib level, 0.5 fib level again as 1, 2, 1, 2, and you're looking for higher prices. And that because we saw, of course, another impulse there, and of course followed by another impulse after a correction 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, and that means again another double 1, 2. However, the signal was given lately, or I would say on Friday, where we saw, of course, a very lower prices here, taking the low invalidation of this 1, 2, meaning I have to consider that the whole thing here can be a wave 2, knowing that the timing for this wave 1, 2 is very, very long, but the time is never invalidation. It is simply, of course, a tip here or hint to be followed. Meaning, in case that we are in a wave 1 and a 2 here, you would like to see, of course, further prices toward the upside unfolding here for higher prices, and that means we would like to see, of course, an impulse as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 continuation for higher. If this happens on Monday, that means, of course, we might be in a, of course, a double 1, 2 here. And you might see here, of course, double 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, 4, and a 5. So I would like to see simply continuation toward the upside. Now, a signal that this is not working and our main scenario toward the downside still, of course, working for lower prices, this is your invalidation of bullish. And that means if the price takes the 1.33, that means, of course, the sterling might continue the trend downward in our main scenario, which is, of course, the big wave 1. 1, ABC, wave 2, and then moving toward the upside. So I'm going to recap very fast for the GPP, because if it is a little bit complicated, I'm going to make it a little bit much more clearer and faster. In GPP, we might be in the main scenario, wave 1 finished. You're looking for a wave 2, ABC, minimum target 0.38. To make sure that we are in this trend or this scenario, we need to take the 1.33 on Monday, or after Monday, of course. If we take it and we see, of course, a further downside, definitely we are looking for this target. The next scenario is a double 1, 2, and you want to see simply continuation toward the upside after this 1, 2. Meaning on Monday, if we continue further for higher prices, the next, of course, potential scenario is taking the high definitely, and we're looking for something very, very bullish here. And the thing might be, of course, very impulsive. And that means if this unfolds, our next target might be around this 1.618, 1.27, $1.41, $1.39 for a wave 3. So we're going to see, of course, what's going to be on a Monday for the GPP again. Let's move for the GPY. So for the GPY, we're going to also go to the all-time history. Let's see if the GPY is still, of course, struggling due to the crisis in the Japan. So yeah, the things are not looking really great for the GPY, especially that the dollar is getting stronger right now. Obviously, we see here a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a finished wave 1 or wave 2. Wave 2 and the wave B given and followed by an impulse for a wave 1, 2 again, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. currently for a wave 3, meaning you are in 1, 2, 3. And what we are looking at, of course, is the triangle that we mentioned before. And it might be a finished triangle, by the way, so we gotta be careful. It can be very, very possible that you have finished this triangle. I know that it looks like a wave D, but basically internally you have finished an ABC, and probably this is your wave D, and your wave E was very, very short here and start the move toward the upside. Let's move inside it to see it much more clearer here on the daily. You can see that after an A, B, C and a wave D given as a zigzag already, you got kind of another zigzag for wave E here, and you start to see kind of like an impulsive wave upward. So basically we have to be careful with it. Of course, on the 2-hour chart we can see that clearly this is of course an impulse unfolding for higher prices, and that means of course the GPY might of course fall down still in front of the dollar. And of course a wave D here, if it is finished or if it is expanding, meaning a wave D can still be there, we're gonna see it of course in this area. Once breaking of course this trend line for this triangle, that might be the signal of course that we are breaking out. And of course a better signal is of course to take the invalidation of triangle here, and that means once you take this price, that means of course the next target might be the blue zone that we are still expecting for the GPY USD 195, 181. And that means, of course, an A, B, C, D, and an E might unfold here for a wave 5 still for higher prices for the USD against the GPY. Yep, that was it for the Forex, the main currencies. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes and comments. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.